Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go. I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hey everyone. My name is Sarah McCarthy and I am so excited that you are joining me as we break down the following standard. Today's standard is MA.4.GR.1.2 and this standard says to estimate angle measures. Using a protractor, measure angles in whole number degrees and draw angles of specified measure in whole number degrees. We will demonstrate that angle measure is additive. So estimating, I wrote over here that I love this, that before we even begin to measure, we are estimating using our knowledge of a square corner and a straight edge, determining whether angles are acute, obtuse, right, straight, all of that. Just estimating it before we even begin. Then using a protractor, which you'll notice we will be using a standard protractor and a circle protractor, and demonstrating that angle measure is additive. That means that we can add them together, that if we have angles that are kind of lined up together, we can add them up to figure out the total of the whole and all of that. You'll see what I mean in a second with that, okay? By the way, this document that I'm marking up all over is not something that I have created. This is something that the Florida Department of Education releases to the public, and in these Breaking Down the B.E.S.T episodes, I'm just showing you how I take the document that they provide everybody with, how I break down the standards in order to create the resources that are available for you and you're taking on the B.E.S.T membership. So we'll spend about half of the video breaking down the standard here, and then we will pop over to the website and I will show you the resources that you have access to with your membership, okay? All right, so some clarifications. It says, instruction includes measuring given angles and also drawing angles using a protractor. So we'll have to measure angles and we'll also have to draw angles. This includes estimating angle measures using benchmark angles like 30 degrees, 45 degrees, which would be half of a right angle, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, and 180 degrees. And of course, 90 degrees is our right angle and 180 degrees is the measure of a straight line. Instruction also includes the understanding that angles can be decomposed or broken down into non-overlapping angles whose measures sum to the measure of the original angle. This is called additive angles, and again, I'll show you what that means in a minute. All right, so what are the related benchmarks that can be horizontally aligned with this one that we're going over? Well, we've got MA.4.GR.1.1, the standard right before this, where we will identify angles in two-dimensional figures. So students should have definitely spent time doing this. Then in MA.4.GR.1.3, I added this one. It's finding the measure of unknown angles. So using what you know to determine an unknown angle. Kind of goes together with that additive angle component that we have in this standard. Some terms that we need to make sure our students know. Acute angle, an angle that's less than a right angle. An angle is where two rays or two line segments, they meet at a point called a vertex and it forms an angle. An obtuse angle is an angle that is greater than a right angle, and of course a right angle has that square corner right there, and it has a value of 90 degrees. So where are they coming from in third grade? Well, in third grade we've had 3.GR.1.2, and this is the quadrilaterals standard, where we're looking at quadrilaterals. We're looking at perpendicular lines maybe forming those right angles, using a square corner to help us. And also MA.3.GR.1.1 is identifying geometric figures, and that's where students learned about parallel lines, perpendicular lines, angles, rays, right angles being square corners, and all of that. And then in fifth grade, They will be classifying triangles and quadrilaterals based on their angles too. All right, let's take a look at the purpose and instructional strategies section, and I'll just point out what jumped out at me. It says the purpose of this benchmark is to build understanding that angles can be measured, that they've had experience with acute, obtuse, and right angles, and now it's time to attach precise measurements to their informal understanding that they've explored so far. It says that students will also estimate angle measures based on their growing familiarity with the size of angles according to the benchmark angles 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60, 90, and 180 degrees. And you can see I have a little diagram right over here that has all of that. So these are the benchmark angles that they're referring to. I started this part because I thought it was interesting that instruction should allow students to draw angles of all sizes, including situations where they must make angles that are larger than their protractor or their piece of paper. This will ensure that students have an understanding that the angle measure does not change even if the length of the rays do. So students might be under the impression that the longer a ray is, the more, that we're not measuring the length of the ray, we're measuring the degree of the angle itself. Instruction should use explicit and direct instruction to show students how to use a protractor, a standard protractor, which is that half circle, and a circle protractor. Using circle protractors helps students to explore those reflex angles, angles that are greater than 180 degrees, that straight line. Instructional time should also be spent breaking apart angles into smaller angles so that students understand that angle measures are additive, that you can add them up and find a sum. Some common misconceptions or errors. I thought that this was written kind of confusingly. It says that students may have difficulty using a protractor to measure. That is true. To assist students with this misconception, they may use a centimeter ruler or an inch ruler instead of the baseline when measuring the angles. Okay, see, I'm even looking at it confusing. I'm like, what does this even mean? So these are saying that students might make these mistakes right here, and we're not really assisting students with this, but just knowing that these are the misconceptions that they may make, that they will have, that they may struggle with using a protractor at first. That's why that explicit instruction, direct instruction, showing them exactly how to use it is so vital for this. Here are some instructional tasks. You can see here is an example of a reflex angle. I wrote down, remember to encourage estimation first. So if I'm looking at A, I know it's going to be greater than 180 degrees, but not quite 270 degrees. So it might be, around 230 degrees, and then finding the exact measure there. Okay, or like B looks pretty close to a square corner. So I might line up my square corner there to see. C is an acute angle, and D is an obtuse angle, so we know it's going to be greater than 90 degrees, but not quite 180 degrees. So because of that, we can go ahead and make an estimation first, and then use the protractor. Then with these, I said that this was a challenging question. This is the additive point, the additive piece of the standard. It says, which of these angles when added together make a right angle? So first of all, your students need to know that a right angle has a value of 90 degrees. Then they're going to have to measure all of these angles and start piecing them together, adding some angles together to get a value of 90 degrees. This is a tough question. There are some questions like this in Taking on the Best, but I just thought this was kind of a challenging question to begin with, but it's fair. It is definitely aligned with the standard. Okay, so that is breaking down the standard. Now let's go ahead and pop over to the website and see what you have access to with your membership. Okay, so here we are on the home page of McCarthyMathAcademy.com. You're going to click Members, enter here, select Taking on the Best. We are in 4th grade, looking at the GR strand, and we're right here at MA.4.GR.1.2, angle measurements and additive angles. Okay, so the first page to open up is your bronze resources. These are your video lessons and student guides. This is basically where students can watch the video lessons and record the notes. The purpose of these video lessons is to make the information click, to make it fun and to make it click, to make them understand. However, in order to make it stick, you need to make sure that they're getting that extra practice in and connecting their notes to more practice on their own. So the very first video lesson is estimate and find precise angle measurements. You can see, we'll take a closer look at the workbook pages, but that will have we'll estimate the angle first, and then we'll use a protractor to figure out the exact measure of that angle. So you can see in the video lessons, it actually looks like it's right at 60 degrees. See how that other line looks like it's going right through 60. Okay, so you can see here that I'm using a protractor on the same problem so students can physically see what is being used. It's nice and clear. We're talking about how this is not a 120 degree angle because it's not an obtuse angle. That wouldn't make sense. This is an acute angle. It's less than a right angle. That's why it would be 60 degrees. For the next video lesson, we're going to estimate and find precise angle measurements using both the standard protractor and the circle protractor. So the angles have already been given. We already have the protractors right there. We just have to practice reading the protractor. And then here we're drawing the angles of specified measure. So if it gives us an angle of 23 degrees, we're going to draw that using the standard protractor, and also these reflex angles using the circle protractor. And finally, we've got some additive angles, kind of like that challenging one, where we need to find all of the angle measures and then see which ones add up to a right angle, and then the next one I believe is a straight angle. Okay, so for this standard you have 4 different video lessons to make it fun and to make it click. If you have the silver plan, you have access to even more extra practice, so students will be able to watch the video lessons and then get their extra practice in to master this skill. All right, so here we have the video lesson just like I was showing you. First we're going to use the benchmark angles to estimate the angle measure, then we'll use the protractor to find the exact measure. That is the video lesson. It's got that video lesson icon, and then you've got extra practice that looks just like what we did in the lesson, so students can look at their notes and then complete this extra practice page to become more confident with this skill. Then we move on to the next video lesson. Estimate, identifying the angles, and then also identifying the measurement of the angles. Then there's more practice, extra practice 2. Then we've got another video lesson where we're drawing the angles that have been given. And then students will complete the extra practice on their own, drawing the angles that have been given to us. And then here's some additive angles, finding the exact measure of each angle, and then which ones when added together will make a right angle. Which ones when added together will make a straight angle. So they're different angles, they got to measure all of them and then figure out which ones will work. And they've got this extra practice page to complete on their own. And the last 2 activities, one is a math mission. This is a multi-part problem, kind of like a math task. Then using the 2 angles together, draw one more angle that when we add them together would make a straight angle. And then this is tackling an error. Michael says that the angle below has a measure of 46 degrees. What error did Michael make? He's looking at the acute portion, which is right here, and not considering the reflex portion that has been labeled right there. So that would have been his error. The last activity in the silver plan is another video. It's Math Misconception Mystery. This is right here. You'll just click play, and I will walk your students through the entire thing in this video. First, they will complete this problem on their own or in a small group, and then they will watch as 4 characters solve that same problem. 3 of the characters are going to make a mistake that students commonly make. So reading the protractor incorrectly will be a big part of this, that some of the characters are making the mistake. Only 1 character solves it correctly. So students will watch and then they will complete their detective report stating who the most reasonable answer belongs to, and also evaluating the work of the others. This is a great way to get your students talking, to encourage friendly debate and math discourse and all of that. This is great for a whole group lesson, but it can also be done in a small group too. And of course, your answer keys are right there. Now, if you have the gold membership, you have access to even more. Okay, you can go back to the bronze video lessons and student guides. You can go back to your silver extra practice. But with the gold plan, you also have a mini assessment specifically aligned to this standard. It's about 4 to 5 questions, and you can see the variety of question types that we have here, all aligned to the standard that we're talking about in this episode. And then here is your mini assessment answer key. Right here is where this video will be when I finish editing it. It's the Breaking Down the Best video. It's nice that it's right here. It's a perk of being a gold member that it's right here with all of your resources. Just know though that these videos are also available on YouTube. They just contain ads. However, most people choose the gold membership because they also want access to McCarthy Math 155, which is a daily math intervention aligned to the Common Core standards, the standards we used to have in Florida. If you're familiar with both the Common Core and the B.E.S.T standards, you do know that there are a lot of similarities, but there was definitely enough of a difference that I needed to create a whole new program, hence taking on the B.E.S.T. However, these video lessons, there's still a lot of great stuff here. There's still a lot of great tools that you can definitely use here to build your students' confidence muscles. The 155 stands for 155 videos for each grade. So for 4th grade, you can see all the different units available. We're going to scroll all the way down though because we want to connect Unit 14, measuring angles 0 to 180 degrees, and measuring reflex angles, right? And finding unknown angles will actually be the next standard that we look at. But if we click here on Unit 14, you can see that you'll have extra practice. Here we go, day 145. Measure angles 0 through 180 degrees. There are 3 episodes just going from 0 to 180, practicing measuring. Day 147, 148, 149, and 150 are measuring using that circle protractor. And then finding the unknown angles we will get to in the next unit. So those don't really pertain to this standard, but you can see that you can use them in the next standard coming up. So these definitely do align. They're extra practice. There were just more components like the additive angles and estimating and all of that we needed for the B.E.S.T standards. But definitely come here if you have that McCarthy Math 155. All right, everyone, I think that is it for going over this standard today. I hope that it makes sense. What is the expectation for your students, and that you know now what you have access to with your membership. Before we go, let me remind you that what you choose to do with your life, it really does matter. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you so much for stepping into the leadership role that you have every single day, for showcasing what your best looks like to inspire your students to do the same. And of course, thank you for inviting me into your educational space. I truly do love being able to support you and your students and put time back into your pocket. Speaking of time, I know that you're busy. You've got things to do. So I will see you in the next Breaking Down the B.E.S.T episode real soon, okay? Bye! Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye!